Hey everyone, I'm Russ Carson, and welcome back to 81Crowe. Before we get this thing started, I have to say a huge apology to everybody for the lack of communication that we've had this year. And, well, I've been trying to find ways to keep myself busy and working on this channel as hard as I can, and, you know, it practically feels like I've been living in this room. So I needed a break, but I'm back now, and I've wanted to do a series on the different banjos that I play here, because, you know, you guys comment about that a lot. It feels like you have a different banjo in every video. Well, there are a bunch of them, but if we're going to do that, I think this is the one that we need to start with, because can you believe that today, 10 years ago, I bought this banjo in Chris Warner's living room, and this whole thing got started. Getting started, if you know anything about me and my background, you know that I never set out to, if you want to even say, like, be a brand ambassador, because, I mean, that's an honest assessment, because at this point I've had about 30 of these Gold Star banjos. But I never really needed a banjo because my father's a luthier, and he's been building since 1974, 75. So our house was literally chocked full of banjos and instruments. But the thing of it is, when I was a kid, I had this problem, and I would plant my pinky behind the bridge. I wouldn't even plant it, and I would pull up on the first two strings. I wouldn't even touch the head. And Dad tried to get me to fix this, and I was a kid, and he was my dad, so he was wrong, and I didn't want to listen to him. So he ended up contacting Tom Adams, who was teaching lessons out of the back of Hank Janney's store, the Arrow Horse, which was in downtown Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. And we went down to see Tom, and I had never really been around very many Gibson style banjos because we didn't have things like that. We had, you know, more Vega, AC Fairbanks, Cole, Dobson, you know, more old time open back banjos. And Tom was sitting there playing this Gibson looking banjo. It had a wreath pattern. I was still learning about all that stuff. And it was his Old Faithful. It was his 1981 Gold Star GF100W. And this is the banjo that he played his entire career. You'll see Tom with that banjo, except for the brief stint when he was with Jimmy Martin, and he had to play the band banjo, which was a Stelling, which is just so weird to see Tom with anything but his wreath. And it was fantastic, and it just planted this seed, and I really wanted to get one. And looked around and couldn't find anything that worked. I actually ended up buying a GF85 parts banjo, which is how the whole relationship with Pruka and Saga, you know, really kind of clicked and took shape, because the wood parts were made by Saga, and the metal parts on that banjo were all made by Pruka, so that's how that happened. And I played that for a number of years, but then I found a Huber VRB 75, played that. I used it on the first Redline recording going back to Old Kentucky, and I used it on my first solo project, Last Chance. It is a good banjo. There's even a few videos, if you look on YouTube, when I placed 9th at Galax, which actually is hilarious because my buddy Matt placed 10th, and we didn't know each other then, so we were standing next to each other on stage, and if I would have known him like I do now, there would have been some serious, you know, ribbing going on, which would have been a lot of fun. But then I was at Patrick McAvenue's college graduation party in his backyard, and Chris Warner, who also used to play banjo for Jimmy Martin, walked over, and we've known Chris for a very long time, my father especially, and he said, "I have something that I think you'd be interested in, you might want." So he starts describing this gold-plated Gold Star with J.D. Crowe's name on it, and my eyes just got, you know, huge. Yeah, that sounds great, Chris. Yeah, ooh. So we made plans for me to go to his house and go check it out. And I went inside to call my dad to tell him, you know, what was afoot. And, I mean, I could have held the phone about that far away from I could have picked up every word. He thought it was a horrible idea. You're going to trade that for... No. Well, so far, 32 years old, that's the only time I've ever been able to get my dad to admit that he was wrong and I was right. And I'm okay with just one, especially it being this one. So, went to Chris's house, got to pick it up. He actually let me take it out on the road and take it out with Redline and just check it out and see if it worked, and it worked very, very well. And I remember recording our sound check the first day, and I played it back for Audie, and he, you know, the second he heard it with the band on that recording, he just, that's your banjo. That's it right there. That's your banjo. So what makes these banjos so interesting is how they were constructed. These are lock, stock, and barrel exact copies of the Granada that JD owned around that time. They are perfect copies, and Saga sourced some really, really fine old growth Michigan maple for the banjo. The veneer supplier that they use for these, this is the same supplier in Upper Michigan that used to send wood to Gibson and Vega around the pre-war, you know, like mid-20s. That's very cool. The banjos came with really, really fine mother of pearl, solid mother of pearl buttons. They were hand engraved, but the true showstopper is the burnished gold plating. There's nothing that compares to it in the modern era. Trust me, I've looked at just about every single example, and I'm desperately trying to find a plating company that can replicate that, because I've got a set of new old stock burnished gold thumb screws and resonator wall lugs, in case I find someone that can get close, that I can send them a sample so that I don't have to take anything off Goldie and get it lost in the mail. The cool thing is, you know, Ron Block used to have one. He played it with the Weary Hearts. I mean, it's Ron. How cool is that? And I'm actually trying to help him find that banjo. He remembers everything except the serial number. So we're trying to find out what the serial number was. And I'd love to get him reunited with that, because how cool would that be? And the other thing is, I got a text from Noam Pekilny, you know, a month or so ago asking about serial numbers on these things, that was some validation. At first I thought it was someone that got a hold of his phone and they were pulling a really nasty prank on me, asking questions about, you know, Gold Star Crowe serial numbers, because it's Noam. What does he need, you know, info about Gold Stars for? It's Noam. So he was actually curious about it, and I went over to his house and he got to play it. And he loved it, except for my action, because, you know, I'm not a small guy, and I actually used to play clawhammer on this thing too. But no, I cut the heel. It's a little bit lower. You can actually play it now. And aside from all that, what makes Goldie so unique and cool is, as I mentioned, there was a total run of 80 banjos from this first production batch. Well, mine is number 5, so it's very early in the line. 1, 2, and 3 stayed in-house at Saga. 1 went to Crowe. The other 2 stayed in-house. Number 4 was the first publicly sold banjo, and then there's mine, number 5. And it went brand new to Chris Warner at Warner String Works in Hanover, Pennsylvania. So it's so cool. And Chris actually played this banjo with Jimmy Martin. I've got one really good photograph of him on stage with Jim, and actually Audie was in the band at that point too, and he was playing mandolin, so that just makes it all the more special to me. And the other thing is, the first batch within the total of 80, the finish was like a very dark, rich tobacco. Single color, no burst. They're all dark tobacco, and the grain pattern in those resonators, you know, it's the same piece of veneer. You can follow it, because I've looked at the back of number 4. I've looked at the back of, I think, either 7 or 8, and it's very, very, very similar grain. And then once you get up kind of into the 15 to 20 range, then the grain pattern starts getting a lot more striped, and it's more of a linear pattern. But the banjo aside, I think it's fantastic, because it started something. This whole YouTube channel stemmed from this banjo. It's really incredible to see how we've all grown, how it's grown. You look back at the first video in my bedroom on Herbsbridge Road, where I didn't have any lights and everything, you know, shooting on that crappy little zoom camera. And then you have the black and white phase where I set up in my parents' den for a couple of months. I was in there for almost 9 months with a big black background, and they let me take over the room because they're saints and they love me. And then I moved to Nashville 7 years ago, And I didn't have any place to do it because my my bedroom in this little house was so small. I either had, you know, basically a place to sleep or a place to film, not both. So there was a period where the channel kind of went away to now we have a dedicated space where we can, you know, the sky's the limit. Have folks over, have jam sessions in here, do lessons in here. You know, it's just, and it's all because of you guys that we have reached the point that we're at. And, you know, it's a small community, but it is a really seriously mighty one. So that's what makes my 1981 Gold Star JD Crowe model, serial number 5, aka Goldie, so special to me. It's you guys. Every time I pick it up, I see this channel, I see how much we've grown, and that is more special to me than just about anything else I've ever done with it. So, sincerely, from the bottom of my heart, thank you guys. Thank you for supporting me, for supporting this channel, for supporting banjos, American roots music. Thank you, thank you. And I can't believe this, for 10 years. You guys have a great day. From Nashville, Tennessee, my name is Russell Carson. Keep rolling.
You know I love you.